Hello, everyone, and welcome to Phoenix Gaming. I am your host, Nick Henning, and we today are covering the Brass Ring Final. Now, I had to rip this off of YouTube, unfortunately, because I had some difficulty with Dropbox. And you can watch this with these fine folks, which include the designer and developer of Brass Birmingham and Brass Pittsburgh, doing this coverage with Chris on the proper channel, and they'll have better quality footage. However, if you want to watch this game at 200% speed with me, that's what we're doing right now. I'm watching it anyway, so we're going to comment on it. We've got Zhao Jin here in seat one, who beat me in the second round of this game, making his way to the finals, opening up with a pretty classic and boring lone opening. Nothing too surprising there. Nothing too strange about that either. We've got Isaac, who I met trying to win the buy for this event at PrezCon. He and I swapped wins and losses, so he's a very good player as well. And I just barely squeaked him out for the buy, but he's the one who got to take advantage of it. Looks like he does some developing away of beer in seat two. Again, not too surprising. Seat the second person to take a loan kind of is in an awkward position. So seat two, seat three. Actually, I think in a lot of ways, seat three is the worst starting seat of the game, is kind of what we found. We've got Cliff in seat three, who's an incredible brass player, probably the best brass player that I know. Certainly above the table here. He's finding his way to lots and lots of finals, and he got to the grand final in the first year of WSBG, winning the nope, it was never mind. He actually has not won in the brass tournament, or maybe I can't remember if he's been in the brass finals before, but he definitely is a regular contender, always finding his way near to the top here. Looks like he's still kind of debating. He did send me a message apologizing, saying that he was probably the slowest player in this game. I see a lot of laughter, actually, chatter between the players, which is interesting. Usually there's a lot of sleepiness and tension at this point of the day. You know, this is, I believe, the fourth round of brass, and pretty late at night, and this game will go on for quite a while. I think there's some editing here, and it's already listed at 3 hours, so thankfully for us, we'll only be doing this for 90 minutes. Looks like Cliff does indeed go for a loan, even though it's not the ideal spot in seat three. He's not seeing anything that is calling him somewhere else. And I think that makes sense. It's really tough to be the person who develops for $3 each. It just doesn't feel good. But Brian says, you know what, I will develop for $6. That's really interesting to me, because I think that being third in the second round is not so bad. Usually what happens in tempo-wise is that the first player, Zhao Jin, is very likely to play out some iron, and Bryant has really stepped him up. I know that Bryant actually is a player who's he's pretty aggressive. You know, like, he definitely cares a lot about the position that his opponents are in, and so this is going to put Zhao Jin into the driver's seat with the ability to get $10 back from an iron play here, which is exactly what he does. Looks like he's going to head into Birmingham to make that a reality. And Birmingham is connected to, I think that's a crate and a blank. So not so amazing for beer options there. People holding Birmingham cards might look and say, okay, well, I can play crates there pretty easily. For Zhao Jin, this is a nice setup, because he can kind of just like expand outwards from there, drop some boxes himself, and sell to that location. So I can see why he would choose Birmingham as his choice. Trying to suss out the other markets, it looks like Stoke-on-Trent has boxes. We've got Pottery over in the one that's by Colebrookdale. We've got Cotton down by Gloucester. And then I think it's a Cotton and a Wild up by Derby, whatever that port is called there. Cliff going second here with his loan is going to drop some cash, it looks like. Looks like he flings errantly a link into play out of Birmingham, and he builds a bad iron in the aftermath of it. He says, I'm certainly happy to offset my loan. This is going to work out really nicely for Isaac, who can do some more developing here. Now, he's already developed away his beer, and so, if it implies that, he's not necessarily playing Cotton, which is the one that really wants the most develops. And Isaac goes into the tank here. He can do two double develops, 4 develops for $2 entire here. But having already developed away his lower end beer, if he ends up playing kind of more of a Blick strategy, the boxes, links, so on and so forth, it's not as exciting. So he says, well, I'll use one of those iron to drop a beer out into playing Colebrookdale here while I can. He's going to want to use those other iron, be it playing more beer or playing, that's a Birmingham right there. I guess he could be playing a crate, a level 1 crate. No. So he used, I think that's a Birmingham card that he used, which implies very heavily that he has a second Birmingham card in hand. And he uses it to develop away the level 1 boxes, which makes sense, and level 1 coal. Basically just setting himself up for a nice fundamental game is what he's planning on playing here at discounted prices. Brian here, in last seat, he'd spent 6 for developing last turn. He can spend 3 if he wants to do some more developing here. Looks like he also developed away his beer last turn. So the question is, does he kind of want to move in behind Isaac? And Zhaojin and Cliff here is actually the only one who hasn't really done, and actually both Zhaojin and Cliff have not done any developing along the way here. Also, apologies, Zhaojin, if I'm saying your name wrong. I'm trying my best, and we'll see if that's right. Probably not. I know the inflection is bad. So Bryant here, yeah, he can't play out iron, of course. He could do some developing and spreading out of his own. You might be debating, like, does it make any sense? Is this going to be a 0 cotton player game? You could certainly have developed beer and do cotton. I think that's entirely reasonable. This is a really biased comment for me if you see my grand semifinal game of brass here. But I think that the idea, if you were doing beer and cotton, is to put pressure on the other players who are all going to be competing for beer spaces. And we see that Isaac really valued that, right? Like dropping an early beer into Colebrookdale there locks him down in terms of where he's allowed to expand out to. So he's saying, I know there's 3 CBD cards in play, Colebrookdale cards in play, and I want to make sure that I get a hand on it as early as possible. Brian here with a turn 2 scout. Amazing. And then he'll also do a develop here. Fascinating. So he just does a whole hand shuffle. I can't quite see everything he's got there. He's a blue card and some random industry cards. So probably just a very weak hand. And looks like he copies Isaac's develop here. He says, I also want to play the Blick strategy here. I'm going to do beer, links, iron, and coal as he develops away his coal and gets himself to those level 2 boxes. Those level 2 boxes are good to play in Canal because they're worth 5 points and they're going to trigger twice. Then we whip around to the beginning of the turn, which means that immediately Bryant is going to be able to act here. And he uses that opportunity to build himself a level 2 coal after taking a loan. So he's going to get a bunch of cash, and then he drops down, he drops down to -3 and then shoots up 7 spaces on the income track. So now he's going to be making $2 a turn, and he could play this game with really very few other loans taken throughout the process because he's got a good chunk of cash right now. He's not playing a particularly expensive strategy. And if he finds a way to get a couple more income bumps, he really just might be making enough money over the course of the game that he'll only end up taking maybe one other loan throughout the course of the game. So I think that if you're in this Blick strategy, I like this as an option when you're saying, look, I can't be the iron person who's making the points like the other players are, which is really the ideal place to be. So I'll at least be a person who's handling my money well with the coal, which is certainly a nice other option here. Isaac debates his options as he's kind of scanning the table, and I suspect that he's also interested in just nabbing up more beer spots. If there's a $2 iron there that he could grab. He could also be a person who drops some iron into play right now, but he can't really connect anywhere from CBD to get iron. So he's going to need to teleport. So I said that thing about iron, and that's a lot. He actually doesn't have a path right now to play any iron anywhere. He's going to have to do some teleporting around. Also, it looks like he's pretty broke because he, was doing all that developing and hasn't really made any money in the meanwhile. So he'll take some cash. And then he will indeed grab that beer spot up in Derby. Now, that's a spot that could turn into something useful elsewise, but it also is, I think there's 3 cards for Derby in the game. And so Isaac has claimed the 2 most claimable, meaning the cards that most people are likely to have, beer spots in the game. Now, that maybe suggests to me that he doesn't have sort of like Stafford or Burton-on-Trent, the ones that have 2, because, those cards are functionally, they're nearly useless in Canal, particularly with this setup here. I don't think anyone's going to like build out to those. Maybe Burton-on-Trent you can connect up to Derby and then connect out to that port there, but who knows. Zhao Jin here does sort of the classic. He's really having, honestly, a pretty nice start here. He does a loan and then overbuild his own iron. He's being extremely action efficient in this process here. He's got a ton of cash on hand that's going to let him do stuff later because of all these loans. He fills up the iron market. He says, I don't really care how cheap it is to develop for other people because I want to get this thing in play. It's going to be worth a lot of points. Iron just is, like for effort generated, there's the most points you can make. Cliff in the aftermath is going to be able to take advantage of some of this iron, which is really nice for him because he was not involved in any of the industries develop wise. He's going to make himself a link here, which he'll be able to use at the beginning of the next turn. I believe first he's probably spent the least money because he just dropped $2 to develop and $3 for that link. So he's heading over to Walsall so he can kind of kick off the next turn, either with an iron or a beer. Honestly, I could see either realistically as being the path that he's doing here. So taking advantage of the fact that he can do this sort of end of turn, start of turn thing to go to a location that he doesn't have the card for, and we'll let him do some flexible stuff. And he develops away beer as well. So it's definitely going to be a space kind of game where we're competing for spaces. Doesn't really look like anybody is looking to play Cotton. And honestly, I'm not surprised. The Cotton ports being down in Gloucester is not great. If anybody is going to play Cotton, they're going to do it up in the Derby area, try to duplicate up there. Looks like Cliff dropped a beer in Walsall. And I saw a bunch of money changing hands, so my guess is that he also took a loan to make that a reality. I mean, I guess maybe he was making change or something like that. See another iron. Oh, no. He wasn't making change. He was making change. He did Stone and Walsall. He claimed the 2 beer spots that he wants to claim for the turn. That makes a lot more sense because I was about to say there's 2 iron missing. So quickly snaps up those 2 spots. Whoever's holding Burton-on-Trent and Stafford right now is getting twitchy in terms of like these beer spots are going to go away and they're going to go away fast. And you're certainly at the whim of the deck for how lucky you are about whether you're drawing Utoxeter or Nuneaton for those last beer spots that you don't have to contest for. But there's 2 cards for Stafford and 2 cards for Burton-on-Trent that these players are all going to have to be concerned about. It seems like everybody except for maybe Zhao Jin is going to be playing beer. And there's a good chance that he'll move into it anyway if he has those cards. So we're going to see some pressure on those spots right now. But iron is starting to get a little bit expensive again, back up to $3. So we are on Brian's turn, and I think he's debating whether he can play. He doesn't have, I think, a path to get to drop any iron anywhere. He's got his coal that's kind of locking him in the bottom right corner, and there's no iron that's like really available anywhere to connect to. So I don't think that he has an option of dropping iron. He does have crates that he can play, but now you're paying $3 for every one of those iron for crates, and just better for the person who does end up refilling the iron market later. So he might want to wait until that market gets refilled again, hoping that other players are going to be interested in doing that. There's a player out there who's holding a Walsall card who's going to be really happy because they can now play iron into that spot. They might be sad that they don't have the spot to play a free beer anymore, but the iron connects directly, and so someone out there is happy about Cliff's line. And I don't think it's Cliff because he wouldn't have made the link there. If he did play Walsall, it's because he drew it right after playing that link. But I couldn't quite see the cards again because of the quality of me having to pass this through a YouTube download, which is my bad. All right, Brian's finished mulling over the options, and he says, I do need to grab, even though it's expensive beer, I do need to grab that Burton-on-Trent beer before it goes away. And then it looks like maybe a wild usage here. I think probably going to grab the other one in Stafford. Oh no, that's a coal usage. Oh, I see. Oh, that's great. Okay, so because he did an early scout, he's actually able to take the Walsall card or turn into a Walsall to play that iron that I was talking about before. So now he gets himself an iron in play, which is great because he can now overbuild this, giving him flexibility for iron in later parts of the turn. That's really cool. I mean, he might be sacrificing a beer location, but it gets him into the iron market, which is just really important for the strategy. Like we said, just in terms of bang for your buck or points for your buck, it's very high on the list. So I really like that play from Brian. I like that usage of the wild. Now's a good opportunity for him to do that. He does make an interesting choice here where he decides to play in Burton on Trent first before playing the iron. And so functionally what he's doing is saying, I wanted to spend a little bit more money. I'm hoping to go later in the turn, next turn with this extra $2 spent. Because he could do it the other way. He could have played iron first and then bought the beer. And for him, the net money is the same, but the money spent in the turn, right? It's like I'm making up numbers, but it's like spend 15, get 13 back, or spend 11, get 9 back, right? For him, the delta is exactly the same. It's not really a decision, but he's saying I want to push till later in the turn order by having done it the other sequence. Zhaojin here also going for a scout. 2 scouts in Canal is not that common, so players here are probably cross-drawing each other's cards, and also because nobody is playing Cotton, there's a lot of useless cards in the game right now. Zhaojin actually has the option of moving to Cotton. It's a completely uncontested market, and it'd be really interesting to see if he says, you know what, this beer world is a nightmare. What if I play Cotton Iron? That's a really weird combo because usually you pair Cotton with coal because Cotton is very action heavy. It requires a lot of money. It requires a lot of actions. And coal is better at offsetting the loans that you're taking to make it a reality. Whereas iron is a lot more about making points along the way. And so, moving into Cotton after you've opened iron is pretty awkward. And like I said, if you don't have the cards for it anyway, it doesn't much matter. It's action dependent. So if you're, taking scout actions here, I don't know that he can really afford to move into Cotton. So we might see a 0 Cotton game here. That looks like it's a develop for boxes and Cole officially putting the nail in the, I think this is a 0 Cotton game. Cliff, I think, is maybe the last person who got a chance to do this, but we're going to see an absolute brawl here for spaces. This is going to be a game that when we get to rail, everybody is just clamoring for those last spots. I wouldn't be surprised to see almost all of the beer spots taken by the end of Canal, which means at the beginning of rail, players are going to rush to those farm brewery spaces if they want to get breweries down at all. And then they're going to be using them to just drop as many links as possible. So the sort of pattern of play where the players here have slotted in so we're not really playing Cotton is going to imply that the player who takes loans or like loan sell at the end of the round so that they can go early, like that turn 8, they want to spend 0 money so they can go early at the beginning of next turn. That also means you want to spend less money on turn 7. So you want to spend as much money now as possible so you can set up for some cheap plays later in the round. And Isaac here uses his Burton on Trent card to not grab a beer because it's not available anymore, and instead drop down a box. And like we said, he could connect up to Derby, but because Walsall has been connected to, he sees an even better line by connecting out of Walsall there, and that's going to be a lot of link points. If everything there flips, that's a 6 link point Canal, which is really, really good. And that's, people don't love dropping links during the Canal era, but in a game where the winning player, I think, is going to be determined by just a couple points of like spaces at the end, a 6-point Canal is actually going to be fairly good use of your time along the way there. So that's a nice line from Isaac. I think that's pretty good. Zhaojin here leads the next round. He says, I do have a Belper card to get some manufactured goods into play, which I'll do up north. If he doesn't have a way to get any beer in play, though, I think that he may have put himself into a really bad position by choosing this strategy. What is he dropping here? Just a link. Just heading into Derby there. Basically making it so that he can connect out. This is a nice line because it doesn't help anybody else, right? That coal is not yet connected to the outer market, so it can't really be sold. It's a nice safe play, but the fact that Zhaojin here doesn't have any beer in play is concerning. I mean, maybe he's holding in a Toxitor and like a Nuneaton in hand, so he'll have 2 beer that he can play out later, but I think that his start was the best, and now I'm starting to get a little bit more concerned for him. Isaac here dropping a Birmingham card, probably to drop a crates into Birmingham. So he's going to have the kind of classic 2 crates, 2 beer, sell strategy here. And he's going really low on the list, taking out the loans now. I wish I could see a number of cards in someone's hand because I haven't been tracking explicitly how many rounds have gone by. But we're getting later in the round. It's like round 6 or something like that out of 8. And so, he's currently paying a lot in resources, but, he's going to be able to do things like loan, sell, loan, and then just like be incredibly rich going into the last round with 2 boxes, 2 crates. The problem that Isaac is having right now is that his industry situation is pretty crap. And so he's got a nice setup. He's got like what I call like the fundamental setup, but he'll be maybe behind in points because of the iron. And that's not ideal. Looks like we got a couple time cuts here as we move to Bryant thinking about his turn. That Stafford location hasn't been claimed, which to me says that some player has 2 Stafford cards, because I think almost everybody has had a crack at it at this stage and no one has claimed it in a game where it's clearly quite important to grab those beer spots. So I think that someone's got a double Stafford, and if we'd been able to see the cards a little bit better, even if I had the higher quality video, I'm actually not even sure that we'd be able to see quite those nuances, those details there. The Stafford card makes a really big difference here, because if someone plays it, you're like, okay, you probably have the other one at this stage. Knowing who's going to play those beers is helpful or maybe not helpful. Kind of Brian taking a second scout for the round. That is wild. He's seeing that he absolutely needs to get out onto some of these beer spots. And so he is going to go ahead and do exactly that. Is that a beer going into Stafford? I mean, it's kind of sitting in the middle of the world. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Oh, I see. He does a wild and then uses the wild industry to play iron. That's so interesting. I mean, iron is very expensive, and so I could see it being like a value use there, but taking a scout to do that seems very expensive. Also, did he discard the wild industry for something else earlier? I'm struggling to have managed his hand and everyone else's hand, but it seems like either there's a mismanagement there or I missed something. It's far more likely that I missed something because Bryant is a very sharp player. So if you do know, certainly would love to hear it in the comments about what happened there. Cliff says, I'm going to get on the boxes game here. He does some developing and joins everybody else in the same strategy. And we see that now we're basically fully locked in. Cliff again taking advantage of the I'm going last, so I'll go first next turn to set himself up and have control or understanding of what the board situation is going to look like as he goes into the next round. Let's see if I can get a glimpse at how many cards. You just flip him a little bit more. He has at least 4 cards, maybe 6 cards in his hand. So looks like we get an iron play here. So Cliff's overbuilding his iron. We're seeing a lot of those iron overbuilds, which makes sense that he kind of just cleared out the market a little bit. He probably was a little bit sad to see Bryant put the iron into the market, but he's able to make use of it and then still use the iron anyway. And he drops himself a box into Derby, making it that he'll be able to sell that box later. He's probably a little bit disappointed by that. I mean, it'd be nice to turn that Derby card into an iron once it's connected, but he can't control when Zhao Jin exactly is going to make that last connection there out of Derby. And so he might miss the opportunity to do it. So he says, well, I might as well play it now when I can do anything with it before having to wait. And there's actually this kind of really funny situation now where you wouldn't connect Derby to that port that's on the outside. You would connect Derby down to Burton-on-Trent, because you're just selling boxes. What do you care? That looks like a Birmingham card, so I think we're going to see a box, and then looks like Stafford cards. That certainly explains. Yeah, so Bryant had the double Stafford, it seems. That's why he wasn't too pressed about using the wild to get into Stafford. He knew that he had safe control there, and probably counted the situation that other people had in the number of cards. Isaac having revealed that he had an extra Birmingham card. I guess you can't really run out Birmingham spaces, so never mind. That one's safe anyway. So Bryant's now at this stage got 1 box and 2 beer in play, close to kind of the ideal setup here. And then looks like Isaac here is going to do some connecting for all these other players and put Burton on Trap next to Derby. But again, this is a 6-point link that is helping other people out, actually a fair amount. But it lets Isaac play down a Cole, completely offsetting his loan situation because he was at -6. Which he needed, so he can take advantage of that Belper there. Zhao Jin then will use the chance to drop a box and a stone and connect that right across there to Burton-on-Trent, making this north-south railway the most used canalway of all time here. Yeah, this is a really impressive sweep up and down the board. Complete disrespect for Eastern and Western industries. Stoke-on-Trent not even having any respect whatsoever. I love that. That's a really fun line there, and he was kind of waiting for that one. I'm now convinced that Zhao Jin must have beer in his hand, Toxeter or Nuneaton, because I think otherwise he's in big trouble. Maybe I'm just creating a narrative for closeness in the game. And we're going to lead off with Isaac here, who's accomplished most of what he wants to accomplish, but his industry situation is kind of rough. So he has to ask himself, what he wants to do for the rest of the game. I think that I was maybe at round 2 accelerated. My guess is that last round was round 6 and this is round 7. So if Isaac spends $0 here, then he can also spend $0 next turn, guarantee going first in Rail Era. Now, that can be really good if there's excess beer in play. Isaac, one of the advantages of sort of the weirdness of his setup here is that he is all over the board. And so he'll probably be able to connect to beer just about anywhere. He can certainly build out of the port, the external port that goes to Birmingham, the external port that goes to Coalbrookdale, the external port that goes to Derby. So he's got all the best locations in the game in terms of giving him flexibility for where he wants to play in the beginning of Rail. So that's a nice long-term setup for Isaac that really no other player has to the same level. Cliff is connected in Derby, but not actually in Birmingham. The other 2 players are connected in Birmingham, but not in Derby. A scout. We get a scout here. And Isaac says, I can't afford to leave this behind. I've got essentially everything that I want to do. I'm not so great in the industry situation. Which is really interesting because he could have, I take it back. I was going to say he could have chosen to play Iron and Derby now that it's connected, and Iron's really good, which I think would ideally be nice for him, but that's actually not true because he's got his beer up there. So he says, look, I've accomplished everything I want to. Why don't I drop a level 3 beer here? This puts more pressure on my other opponents. I really like this line for him, even though it's 2 actions to have done this. I think it just creates a lot of pressure on this beer market. That's a huge problem for people. And if 2 people are holding a Toxeter right now, they have to be all of a sudden very scared. And this is the most scouts I've ever seen in Canal Era of a game. This is amazing. Was that a develop? That was an extremely expensive develop. Oh, I see. Okay. So a very expensive develop here, but Zhao Jin is he's planning on playing this Iron out, and so he gets a lot of this money back. And sorry about that. Gets a lot of this money back in the Iron market there. So he kind of overpays, but at the same time, it's not really an overpay. He knows that the Iron's coming back to him. The develop is really interesting though, because what did he develop? I guess he developed away coal so he can play it during the Rail Era. And did he develop away a box? No. Yeah, I missed the other develop. I wonder if it's a beer, because it's not an Iron. Was it coal? Maybe it could be 2 coal. I guess it could be the other option. Yeah. We'll pass over to Cliff's turn here. Cliff has a little bit more work to do in terms of setting up here. You know, he's got out some industry situation here, right? He's got the irons out. Looks like he's got a beer, 2 beer that he wants. He's got a box, but he probably wants to play another box. Looks like he does indeed have a new Toxiter card. That maybe was 2 Toxiter cards. So one of them for sure goes up top there to claim the other spot before anybody else gets cheeky with scouting shenanigans. But that certainly is a nice, safe place to be living for a while, watching that happen. And then maybe he needed to take a loan because I see him at negatives now, and I don't think he was at negatives before. But my guess is that he took a loan and then played that beer out. I guess if I was not playing this at 200% speed, the other way that I could be recording this is by tracking every player's money throughout the course of the game to give like a really, really deep insightful. But I think that'd only really be truly valuable if I could also see their hands somehow. So I prefer the speedy approach. We'll miss things here and there. There's another time cut. Bryant mulling over his options. There can't be a lot of time left in this round here, but all of his opponents have spent money. You know, if he manages to spend no or a little money, he could control going earlier in rail. But he has another box that he needs to play. And so I think he might be debating where that box goes. Right? He's got the 2 beer, and ideally he wants to find another box to flip with those beer. And there's not a lot of spaces left, frankly, that kind of connect. I guess Wolverhampton is the answer, right? Like he could come out of Walsall there and do Wolverhampton. But other than that, I think that the box spaces are kind of dying on this network. I mean, we've got space in Stoke-on-Trent. Okay, actually Stoke-on-Trent works because you could just connect that to stone. You might be wary of doing that in the sense that like you might set someone else up for another iron play right at the end of the round, which would be kind of sick. All right. And we're coming in with a dark purpley card and a bright yellowy card. So it looks like we are going to play into Wolverhampton. And that's another... Is that 2 iron usage? That's a beer placement? That looks like a beer placement. So it's got to be Nuneaton, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So we had it safe. So that means that he scoops up 3 beer slots. Isaac scoops up 3 beer slots. And Cliff scoops up 3 beer slots as well. Wow, so 9 beer slots claimed, and Judgin having claimed none of them. So that might end up being a wasted develop on his part. We'll have to see if he's able to connect to a farm brewery later, but that's pretty devastating. And Cliff having spent the least money, he can spend a 0 money turn now and go in the beginning of rail, which is going to be really sweet because there's definitely going to be some leftover beer at the end of this round here that he can use, including his own beer. Because he's only going to be able to flip... Oh, he can only flip 1. He's only got 1 box. Oh. And this has got to be the last round, right? I think he's just got 2 cards in hand if I can see correctly there. Oh yeah, so Cliff is going to have this awkward situation where he's got 3 beers in play, but only one of them that's really going over. That's not ideal for him. You know, he does have a level 2 iron, so it's not like he's had a bad round or anything like that. But that's definitely not the ideal. And I guess he prioritized having that beer in play more than having that other coal in play. Now he'll get to go at the beginning of rail and do a quad. Because he'll have left his beer in play and kind of can connect it really wherever he pleases. And since he's got a box in Derby, he can do, you know, the infamous beer triangle, connect all those high value spaces up top there for a whole bunch of points. It's got to be his line, I suspect. There are just too many points available up there. It's also possible that I guess Zhaojin will flip some of Cliff's beer, which is fine also. I mean, yeah, you don't get to quad rail, but if you triple rail and someone flips your beer for 5 points in Canal, that's okay too. Oh, Isaac, sorry that my Phoenix has been blocking your name. There we go. It's really mulling this over. I mean, it's sort of interesting. Cliff obviously, when he makes his decision, is very definitive, and then when he's debating something, I feel like it could be obvious to see what he's debating. Here, I'm not so sure. I don't see a place for him to play a box anyway. Not on he'd have to link it somehow, and then he runs out of action. So I think he has to take a sell action. It's too many points not to sell, right? Like flipping the beer is 7 for the level 3 beer, and the crate is 5. So it's 12 points to take a sell action. So he's definitely taking a sell action. I guess what he could be doing is counting how many beer in play are going to be used, and if someone will be forced to use his beer. That being said, I don't think that really mattered. I was going to say, oh, you could use a merchant beer. The one off of Derby there gives points, 3 points for using those beer. But actually, I guess they don't do much. And so are there 4 cards? Am I missing? No, there's 2 cards. Okay, great. So he'll take a loan, and then he will sell. Yeah, he'll do exactly what I expected. I do wonder if folks know what he was debating there. Would love to see that. We passed Isaac, who's already got his turn figured out. I think he's doing exactly the same thing. He's going to take a loan and flip as well. Even less surprising for him. And he leaves the beer that is in the far corner that's harder for other people to use, which normally would be more important, except for Cliff is probably going to have 2 beer in play. And so, it doesn't really matter that Isaac's is the one that's left over or not. Zhao Jin going 3rd here. He connects to the external market so that he can use the 2 beers there. Those 2 merchant beers, or the 1 merchant beer there, is going to give him 3 points. And then he'll use the merchant beer in Birmingham, locking that out so he won't have to use any other player's beers. We'll put him, last in the acting order if Brian spends nothing. But I actually think that that's probably fine for him. I mean, I think that works out kind of favorably, honestly. And then Bryant has his, I think has a scout there that he'll use to connect and then flip. Oh, right, of course. So Zhao Jin is still going 3rd. Because Brian had to connect as well. And then both of them are a little bit broker. So I do kind of like Cliff and Isaac's positioning for rail a whole lot more. We're going to have to see how the points shake out, but what we have for Zhao Jin, first seat, is he's got a level 2 and a level 3 ironworks, which is really nice. And he's got 2 crates, but no beer, which is pretty brutal. Isaac, on the other hand, has no iron in the game. He's got, I believe, a coal. Is it 2 coal? Maybe just the 1 coal. I think he's got 1 coal in play, 2 boxes, 2 beer, and an unflipped beer. Then Cliff, we know, has 2 unflipped beer, a beer that he flipped, a crates that he flipped, and a level 2 iron. Whereas Bryant has 2 beer flipped, 1 beer unflipped, 2 crates. Looks like a coal and a level 2 iron. He's got the medley. He's kind of the spread here. And so nobody has the nuts, right? Like Isaac is missing iron. Zhao Jin is missing beer. Cliff didn't flip enough stuff, right? He's only got 1 manufactured crate. Bryant, I guess, on board probably has the best stuff in terms of flipping, but he's also going into the last turn here with bad tempo. I think the person that I'm most concerned about positioning-wise right now is Zhao Jin, having missed all of the beer spots. If he had taken even one of the beer spots, I think that story would be a little bit different. But he got completely boxed out timing-wise. I think he even took a scout action. Brian took 2 scout actions. I think Isaac took 1. Zhao Jin took 1. So there were definitely a handful of wasted actions there. Link-wise, Isaac, I think, probably made away with the best, points per link ratio of anybody out there. And as they're counting up the scores here, what is that? Do I know? 10. I'm just making up numbers, right? 10, 15, 25, 30, 40, 45. Let's say it's like 40 or 50 up there. I don't know. I actually don't know how it is. I haven't memorized the board corners, but I'm seeing that orange is pretty ahead in points, followed by yellow, followed by white. Where is purple? Purple's got to be tied with somebody. Or under an income somewhere. I mean, Isaac's points can't be... It makes sense that Cliff has the least points, right? He only had the one manufactured good, but he opens up with a quick quad rail, which is a huge number of points for him. And then Isaac here, I think, is also going to follow up with a quad rail because now Bryant's leftover beer is connected to his network. So he's just going to have to decide where he wants to build out of. But I think connecting to Bryant's beer is not difficult given that he is in Burton-on-Trent and Burton-on-Trent is connected to Cole. Now he'll pay a little bit more for it than Cliff does. If I could only find where his points were, it would be much clearer to me. But yeah, Zhaozhen has a lot more points than the other players, and he's going to have to, leverage those additional, It's 3 points per block, so 3, 6, 9, 12. He's about 12 points ahead of the other players thanks to that Iron 2, Iron 3 situation. But, Cliff just flipped 10 points of beers. Isaac just flipped 5 points of beers. Bryant just flipped 5 points of beers. Oh, I see the purple now. It's right next to the yellow there, blending into the board. So he's just 1 point ahead of Bryant. That makes sense. And they all flipped their beers for plus 5 points. So I said Zhaozhen is ahead by 12, but realistically, we could treat him as ahead by 7. And Cliff, another, 7 behind that. So it's like Zhaozhen -7, Isaac, Bryant -7, Cliff is kind of what it looks like. But Cliff got to open up the quad at the beer triangle. Isaac got to do a quad. And he grabbed for himself that countryside beer. And actually, I guess Isaac didn't quad. Maybe he didn't have the money, or he had some other priority. Yeah, it looks like he played out Cole and Decanic. This works out really nicely for Zhaozhen, who does actually now get to quad. He gets to take Bryant's beer. So that's interesting. Maybe Isaac had money problems, and he didn't want to get completely choked on money and was okay with Zhaozhen. This works out really, really well for him because that's a nice connection there. Interesting that his second rail there goes into Tamworth. Tamworth is not an exciting spot to be. It's not the most points. It doesn't really give him a lot of options. I would feel like Stoke-on-Trent would maybe be interesting in terms of having like an iron place, but maybe doesn't want to open it for someone else. But even then, maybe Derby Belper seems better to me than Burton-on-Trent Tamworth. Well, if we're just going to do it anyway, then what do we care? Even still, I guess I'm not seeing anything I really care about. Maybe Zhaozhen has a couple Tamworth cards in hand and wants to play out Cole, which makes fine sense. He needs to find a way to make some money back. It worked out well for him. I think I didn't realize how much cash he had available at the end of the round. I'd assumed because he didn't get to take a loan that he was in trouble, but I actually need to think all the way back about the fact that the money with the iron worked out very favorably for him for most of the round. So he probably had more reserves than I kind of expected for someone at that stage. And then Bryant here is left with the slim pickings. He's the person who I think in this moment is furthest behind. I mean, even after he takes his action, he's probably still furthest behind. Is that true? Each of Cliff's rails are between 5 and 7 points. So that does really nice gap closing there. Yeah, no, I think what I said is true. I think Cliff basically tied Zhaozhen with the quad rail, but then Zhaozhen got a triple rail. So I think he's still ahead a little bit. So I think we're still looking at orange, then white, then purple, and then probably yellow. Although, Isaac just basically dropped 2 rails and Cole, which is not like a dream. Yeah. I could see Bryant doing some shenanigans. I mean, a lot of money was spent this turn. He's basically got 4 actions in a row right now, which is generally more exciting if you have access to beer somewhere, but he really doesn't have access to beer anywhere. The only one that really is possible is all the way down in the southwest, which is just no link points to go there. I think someone might go there at some point in time just to play the beer down, but it's a lot of work to play a pretty crappy beer down. So I don't quite know when or what that's going to look like. My instinct here is that the most interesting thing for Bryant to be doing is grabbing some high value rails, probably out of Birmingham, connecting to like Coventry and stuff like that. But you can't do that until Birmingham's connected to the outside. So if he wants to manage his money instead, with coal placement, that seems entirely fine to me. He's going to do exactly that, going to Cannock. And it looks like he has the card for making that happen. And is that an iron? What was the second action there? Maybe he took a loan. He probably was actually pretty broke. Although I see his yellow thing is all the way up there, so I don't think he took a loan. I think his income is very, very high. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, this harkens all the way back to the early part of the game where I said Bryant isn't going to have to take many loans this game. All right. Looks like he ate 2 coal, so my guess is link and a link, or is it a link and an iron? He's pointing out that he needs to connect before connecting out of Birmingham to Dudley, he needs to connect Birmingham to the external market. Played 2 rails. Maybe one was a rail from last round. But plays an iron out here. I have to guess one's a rail from last round, right? Just maybe missed an action or something. Because I don't think there was a place to grab a beer for a double. So I think last turn he played coal, link, and then link, iron. If I read it correctly. I'm not quite sure. There's some funky movement there. I mean, I'm sure it's all above board. I just couldn't quite tell. Isaac says, I'm happy to grab some spaces around Birmingham while I can. Birmingham's likely to only be a 3 spot. I don't think that anyone's going to play anything interesting, points-wise into that last Birmingham location. I mean, Cliff has the opportunity to play a box down, which doesn't seem all that exciting. It's only 5 points. But Cliff, if he also plays pottery down, will be interested in playing that box down later because it's 5 points, maybe even 8 points actually, because he could grab the one up by Derby, the wild there, if people aren't using those beer. Although I guess that wild's probably going to be grabbed by a pottery. The rush on pottery is going to be very, very real here. It's something that the players are for sure going to have to pay attention to. Judge in here drops some coal. And now iron is full up. I think that there's going to be a point where someone drops an iron into play and overfills the iron market just to be the person that clears the iron board. This is the kind of funky plays that you see when everybody is playing essentially the same strategy here. You'll see the markets kind of get over flooded as there's a scramble for the opportunity to score those points in advance rather than waiting for the opportunity to get a lot of money out of it. It's just making sure that yours is going to be the one that flips, and there's going to be a chokehold on those pretty soon. Cliff sees that pottery game coming from a while away, and he says, you know what, I'm going to get on it as soon as possible. Here's my move into Coventry for some pottery. Psych. Give me some money back. Knowing that he's at the end of the turn here, he might think that he's able to go early enough in the turn next turn that he can make it happen. Spend a little bit less money now. Spend a coal instead, which I assume looks like a link going somewhere. Because I can't imagine he's playing an iron with absolutely no iron out of the market. I was saying that you'd overfill the market, but I don't mean overfill from nothing. Getting a bunch of camera bangs here, but I don't think any of these players are next to the camera, so someone at another table is having a grand old time to earthquake here. That's going crazy. I've never seen this before. All right, if you can keep your head on. That looks like a Birmingham card. And I think he scooped up a bunch of money, but it looks like he put No, he spent money, so he must have dropped a link. Oh, he dropped a link between Canik and Walsall. 5-point link. And I missed the other bit. Maybe he did take a loan or something like that. I can't imagine that his money is in too good shape. Now he drops the pottery, going first in the next turn, and immediately sells it. And he immediately sells it for an additional 3 points. So he does a 1-2 punch combo here. He can decide later if he wants to do that crate as well or not, but I think at this stage, probably not. What's interesting is that there is a better pottery point thing in play, right? The one next to Coldbrookdale there. So the rush on that location is sort of an interesting one. I mean, you want one of the two of them. And so this one is already connected. And Cliff's saying, look, I see the writing on the wall. We're going to be scrambling for absolute garbage at the end of the game here. And so I want to get at it while I still can. It looks like some blue card for a link here, which is going to be a 4 or 5 point link if we end up putting another coal into Tamworth, which I think is quite likely at some stage in this game. And I didn't quite see what the last action was here. That might have been I'm just going to guess a loan. Well, no, his income's still really high. Maybe it was 2 links. Something like that. Could have been a link out of Birmingham to Nuneaton. Okay, I would guess something like that. Isaac's looking around and he's asking himself this question that we've been talking about for the past few moments. Where are the points going to come from later in the game? And so at this stage, it might be like, do I just grab the rails that I can, scramble for the additional points? Like we're looking at things like Stone, Stafford, which is a 5-point link, maybe a 6-point link if you get yourself some pottery. We could do something like head up to Stoke-on-Trent and grab the iron there, even though the iron market's still full. Isaac's not going to do that. He could go up to Stoke-on-Trent and grab the pottery there. And he's the one that's safest with pottery because he's going to be able to build a beer later. But if you're good on cash, which it seems like he is, eating some coal and dropping some links in play just seems like the thing that, this is going to get choked out. Everybody's going to want to drop these links because no one else is really building functionally any real industries this game, right? Like we're probably not going to see another crate. We're definitely not going to see any cotton. So he connects as many points as he possibly can, encircling Coventry with 2 links, it looks like. And I like that Isaac's being disciplined and not using his countryside farm brewery. He's got a long time to do it. This is only, round 3 or something, 4 maybe of rail era. And so he's got a fair amount of time left to make that decision. I think this is around 4 if I'm looking correctly at Cliff's discard pile. Although, is that 1, 2? No, maybe Bryant only has 4. Maybe this is around 3. We are on Brian's turn, who again is in the last C here. So he might be saying, do I want to do kind of a 1-2? Do I want to go slow and then fast? Coal's really expensive right now, so you could certainly be grabbing links, but it's not the best time. That being said, you could do something like drop coal into play, get some extra money back, and then go early next turn and use that coal. So now it remains very expensive for other players. And it looks like he's playing a reddish card. That is indeed a coal that we're seeing come out. Where is that going to go? Is it Tamworth? It's got to be. Yep. And then a link out of Stone to Stafford, which we talked about before. Clearly, we're thinking some simpatico things there. Doesn't quite put him into first place because he spends too much on that rail. In fact, actually puts him back into last place. What does he care? He's just trying to maximize his score here. This will open up for someone else to build into Stafford if they have the card. But if not, Bryant has a lot of ways to build that pottery in Stafford. And I'm talking about pottery so importantly because it's 10 points that if you can put it into play and if you can flip it, it's just going to be points that you can't take anywhere else. And admittedly, the flip, it and a flip means that you're getting only 5 points per action. But at this stage, the players are dropping coal, the players are dropping links that are worth 5 or fewer points, and so pottery and a flip for 10 is very good. Judgin here drops a rail for 5 points, as we were just talking about, and puts some coal into play, putting some coin in his pocket, and also 2 or 3 points, depending on how cool that coal is. I think it's just a 2-point coal. But at this stage, he's point leader, so his goal is for everybody to just kind of stay the same throughout the course of the game, and that would let him come out on top at the end. Isaac here taking an uncharacteristically long turn, mulls over his options. It's a lot easier for him in Canal, where he knew exactly what he was doing, but here he's really trying to scramble to figure out what is most effective. There's certainly an argument to be made to be connecting to Colebrookdale. Those industries are going to be really valuable industries to play out, and it's a good link point out of Wolverhampton there, or even to the side market. But it's time for Isaac to pull the trigger. He says that I'm going to drop the beer into play, and probably follow it up with a double rail. Now the coal's a little bit cheaper, and it passes it over to Cliff as the person who's going to get the reward of an extra beer being available for him to do a double rail now, which is almost certainly going to be the case. He's not going to want to leave that for Brian. He counts up his ridiculous gobs of cash over there and says, I can make this a reality. I think that's where he's going to head. You can see that he didn't quite anticipate that option as he's kind of looking around and debating his choices here, counting the money, how much do I have to spend? Looks like he counted out the $25 that he'll need for the double rail. And so he's looking at, I don't know, 17 or something like that extra that he's going to have to think about. Did I see where Isaac put his double rail? Looks like maybe Birmingham, Tamworth. And down to Redditch. Redditch is an interesting choice because Isaac isn't the one who can build iron. So he's, I guess, kind of baiting other players into building iron there, and then he's going to build a coal there or something like that. I feel like the Colebrookdale Wolverhampton is probably going to wind up being worth more points than Redditch Birmingham. So I don't know if I quite like that build. My guess is that he has Redditch in hand. I don't know. It seems really good to give someone else the ability to play an iron here. It could be what Cliff is debating. We see a yellowish card here. That's a Colebrookdale. So he's playing it without actually selling it back to the market and then double railing after that. That's really interesting. Oh, because he can't. Okay, he's white, not yellow. Yeah, he can't build out of a Wolverhampton into Colebrookdale. So yeah, it doesn't quite give him the money back. You know, he's got one coal essentially wasted that someone else is gonna get. But this is the most efficient action in terms of maximizing his points and his spend, even though he doesn't get the $4 or $5, I guess $4 value of that coal there. And whoever is gonna scoop it, Bryant, I guess, gets to get a free coal, which is a nice miniature perk. It's not amazing, but you take it when you can, right? And then this other link there was a Stafford connection. That one's also interesting, right? Like if he builds out of Colebrookdale, that's probably a 6-point link, but maybe he just doesn't want to set up the easy pottery sale for whoever's next. Maybe he thinks that Bryant is one of his main points of competition here because Bryant's the one who'd be able to do pottery sell to the Colebrookdale Shrewsbury? Is it Shrewsbury? Something like that. Oh, looks like my guys have moved over to the side. I'll do the same. Sorry, guys. It's just awkward for us all to be on the screen at the same time. Yeah, so Brian here, suddenly has a few more options available to him. You know, again, going last here, it's like, can I do something that does a double action here? You know, if I spend less money, it's getting harder and harder to spend less money because every time you're playing a rail, it's, you know, $9 or whatever. It adds up really pretty quickly. If he wants to be able to, you know, do that Shrewsbury sale, he just doesn't really have a way to connect out there. If he has a Colebrookdale iron, I feel like slamming that down seems good to me. We're at a stage of the game where the iron usage is going to plummet. I think there's going to be a couple iron used for some pottery, and that's about it. So I think whoever plays the next iron may very well be the last iron. There is no more space for beer except for that one down in the bottom left corner, which could be also what Bryant is looking at. Not entirely clear. Some people will use iron for coal, but you know, we see everybody except for Cliff is at the stage where they're going to use some iron for coal. So maybe 2 iron will get dropped into play, but for Bryant, it's a level 4 iron. It makes a really big deal whether this iron is going to play or not. Bunch of cash and an iron grabbed to do the pottery in Stafford. Coal grabbed to make a link down to Kidderminster. So it looks like he does have his eye on that farm brewery down in the bottom left there. It's really interesting because I feel like this is just kind of a dream. Like Brian's link there, he's not going first. If Jejin or Cliff has Kidderminster, it seems like a huge setup for them. Jejin wastes no time at all. He says, I also want to get on the pottery game. I would like to grab this second to last pottery space and play. And Stoke-on-Trent can never really be counted on. But how are we going to sell it? Now we suddenly have a pressure on this market. And Jejin says, I will definitely grab this iron space that's available. That is a huge get for him. I think that keeps him in the game a lot. I'm not sure that he's going to be able to flip this iron, though. Or this pottery, though. I mean, I think has set up a situation here where he has pressured Bryant into a situation where he must either grab that farm brewery or flip his pottery beer. Although maybe Judge's saying to himself, Bryant doesn't have a way to get out here. So it sort of depends on if anyone decides that they want to connect to Shrewsbury, which isn't crazy because they want to get 6 points and maybe don't want Judgeon to actually be the one who flips a pottery here. Because him dropping that level 4 iron, it's a very big deal. He's not getting overbuilt this game. Cliff's debating his choices here. I wonder if he's debating exactly this. Right? Is he saying to himself, should I build out to Shrewsbury, allowing Bryant to flip his pottery? Which player do I think is more of a threat to me right now? Because I want to get the maximum, right? I would get 6 points if I connect to Shrewsbury. But I just give Bryant this like on a complete platter there. And then Bryant's next turn is likely build the link down to the farm brewery, something else. Looks like he doesn't have Kidderminster in hand because I'm pretty sure Cliff's good line here could be Kidderminster play a link. Because dropping another beer seems pretty good here. And if he drops it early enough, you know, it's definitely going to be used. You can actually get into a really weird spot where you leave your brewery till way too late in the game. And then the players are like, all right, well, I'm just not going to double rail because I don't have the money. Or it's only, you know, plus 3 points, but it's plus 7 points to flip your beer over. We're getting on. How many cards do it? Looks like Isaac has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cards played. So this is round 5. It's round 5. Doesn't have Kidderminster, but he does have Dudley. Make some money back. Drop the last level 2 coal. God, these players really just are overlapping each other so directly. Very funny game of brass. And he says, you know what? I'll do it. I'm going to connect. It's all for you, Bryant. I will maximize my points. I'm happy to see that Zhaojin not flip his pottery. And that's pretty devastating. I think that was really a pretty big risk for Zhaojin to drop both the iron and the pottery. You know, the amount of time between him dropping that and when he would go next turn even is so long that you really can't count on that beer still being there. I think Bryant has to take a sell action this turn, just in case Isaac executes some shenanigans where he gets up to Stoke-on-Trent and then goes before Bryant. You know, or like he goes first, he like makes a link to Stoke-on-Trent, goes first next turn, he drops the pottery in Stoke-on-Trent and then flips it. See the other games vacating the premises as they finish out their finals. Probably leaving Brass as the last ones for tonight. It looks like they're finishing up Terraforming Mars there, which I did cover the other day, if you're interested in watching. Of course, I was too busy looking at the background to notice what was happening here. I think what we saw was we saw exactly what we talked about. Bryant sold his pottery and then connected down to the farm brewery. Now, that farm brewery is nice, right? It's going to be a 7-point beer that he'll flip later. But, you know, he dropped 2 links that are going to be worth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. So 2.5-point links to drop the brewery there. So it's like, oh, okay, the brewery is 7 points, but these links were, you know, 1.5 undervalued each, so 3 points undervalued. So it's really only a 4-point brewery at the end of the day, something like that. And that kind of thing becomes more and more important as we're running out of space to do anything of value in play. So I don't think that it is a mistake to do that at all. I'm just pointing out that it's not as impactful because there's this kind of missed opportunities here. Looks like the Kidderminster card that would have been quite devastating for Bryant was actually in Isaac's hand. And instead, Isaac says, you know what? I'm happy to give Bryant 2 points here. I suspect that he's got a way to play some coal anyway, because I want some money. I want to make sure I'm filling this coal market. Actually, it's 3 points at this stage for the coal that he's dropping. And I missed what his other action was. If he was completely broke, no, he dropped a pottery up in Stoke-on-Trent. He spent a ton of cash to do that. Where is he going to sell that pottery? What on earth? Oh, he's going to overbuild one of his own beers. That's also what... But Zhaojin doesn't have that option because he didn't have any beers in play. Okay, so Isaac's looking to overbuild one of his own beers so that he can play that pottery there. Which is like kind of grim. It's not the most exciting way to do an overbuild. At least for him, his overbuild is actually pretty good because he's at the level 4 beer. So upgrading his 5-point beer into a 10-point beer actually is pretty good. So now that I'm realizing that he had both of his level 3 beers in play, I'm liking this a little bit more. But it's ambitious. There's definitely a handful of things that Isaac needs to do before the end of the game. Never mind. Brian's going to solve one of them. He's going to connect to Stoke-on-Trent. It's a couple points. Why not take the 4 points while I can? And I missed action 2 from Bryant. Could be money. I don't see Bryant's income mark. Oh, it's all the way over on the right there. Okay, so he didn't take a loan. He doesn't need to take loans. He just makes a lot of money. So he played a link. Played another link somewhere? I'm just missing it. I don't know. Iron's back in the market thanks to the additional pottery builds from what I had anticipated. And a build of coal. That looks like a Birmingham card and an iron card. I wonder if this is a link iron. It's certainly a link. That's a great link out of Colebrookdale there. 5-point link. I kind of wonder if Bryant missed that. Maybe he wanted to go north for some reason. Nope, this is just double links for Cliff. He's just soaping up the few points that are left, 4 and 5 points there for links. Yeah, did Bryant miss an opportunity there? Is there some reason that he needed to go north? I don't think so. Oh, Bryant has developed boxes. So he is looking to do some level 5 boxes because he has a beer brewery. So he can play level 5 box, play his last two actions of the game are going to be farm brewery, sell my double box. I see. That's why we have more iron in the market. That makes a whole lot more sense. It's nice for other players, honestly, the fact that the iron market's a little bit more cleaned up. Actually, I guess the person that that's really most nice for is Cliff. Cliff's the one who wins out there because Isaac can't take advantage. Although Cliff maybe can't take advantage either. Maybe he just has no way to do that. Isaac here drops the coal and Redditch that we anticipated he would do, and then also connects to an external market up in Stoke-on-Trent, I think just for a lack of other play options available to him at this stage. Yeah, this is 3-point link, but there's basically a ton of 3-point links in play, which is like paltry, truly paltry. Jin drops a terrible level 3 box, an expensive level 3 box into Birmingham here. But he doesn't have much else to do, I guess. I don't think he's going to find a way to sell his pottery, so I'm not sure that this box play makes a ton of sense. I guess if he plays yet another box, it's like marginally worthwhile, but I think that next box is only worth 3 points. Yeah, yeesh. He might have been better served. Just playing 3-point links, but that's not really a winning strategy either. All right, hold on 1 second. Okay, we're back. Looks like we're heading into our final 2 rounds here, I think. Trying to check the hand sizes of people, if it's 4 or 6 remaining there in the shuffle. Maybe it's the final 3 rounds? What are we looking at? 2, 3. Oh, to shuffle too fast. Maybe I can count Isaac's cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 down. I think Isaac's cards, are 10 down. So I think we got 6 cards in hand. So I think we're 3 rounds towards the end of the game here, leading off with Bryant. Got 34 minutes left in this video. So 17 minutes left in my video since we're playing at 200 here. Oh, of course. No wonder they're shuffling so fast. That's amazing. Yeah, there really are not a ton of spots left. Let's take a look at the board. There's a link between Dudley and Wolverhampton, for 4 points. There's a link out of Birmingham for 3 points. There's a couple 3-pointers in the south. Bryant here drops not 1 but 2 boxes. Not 1 but 2 boxes. Are those both level 5 boxes? What is he planning on doing? Oh. There's 2 boxes. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I'm such a fool for missing this. Of course, there's 2 farm beers left. And he plays 2 big boxes out into play, saying, I'm going to play my farm brewery and then sell all of these spaces. God, that's so interesting. And turns that Stoke-on-Trent connection into a monster connection. I guess there really aren't other box spaces in play. Is there any option here that Cliff plays his level 2 box and sells it? Is this why Bryant did this first? If he took up the last 2 spaces for boxes? Wow, so not only was this a great line, it can't be stopped. It's a very scary thing to do, right? To put 2 level 5 boxes into play. That is bananas. Really interesting line by Bryant. Yeah, that's truly fascinating. Let's see if I want to count that. 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 31, 4, 7, 43, 4, 7, 50. Something like that. 50 around the corner is what I'm trying to figure out. That looks like a coal drop or a Newton drop for some coal for Cliff here. Yeah, I think there's no box spaces left to claim. So it's safe. I love that. That's a really cool line. That's a great pivot. I mean, honestly, in a game where everybody is competing for the same things, Bryant finding a line to score some other points is very clever. He's going to have some trouble, though. I mean, his rail links in play are so much weaker than his opponents. But, I mean, I guess he knew that. And he said, I need to find some other line towards victory. Why not try it? We see Isaac's overbuild here. And I think he's going to immediately use it to sell his pottery. Bunch of points for him. This works out really nicely for Xiaojin, who's going to... Oh, there's a beer available, but, like, not a lot of choices for him. I mean, I guess he can double rail, but, like, for three-pointers, I guess? Oh, no. Lucky for him, there's an extra beer for the pottery. Oh, that is huge. That's a real gimme for Isaac. I mean, I guess Isaac wants this to happen. You know, he wants that beer to go away, but man, that's a game-saving play. That's a 10-point play for Zhao Jin there. That wasn't a possibility. Here's a crappy 3-point link. I mean, how can he say no, though? Like, eventually, Isaac's beer is going to go away anyway. Isaac will use it himself if he has to. So you might as well use it now. I mean, I think selling it, like, it's going to go away. I think that selling that pottery is not an option here. I'm very curious that this is a debate. Maybe he thinks that, or maybe his spending is low enough that he could do something like drop a coal and leak. He's having a conversation and sort of looking around, checking out the beer situation. But maybe he's trying to see if he leaves it, maybe he would go second next turn if he plays some money right now. And so he's trying to count other people's money and see if they would be able to use the beer, because like Bryant has like some locked actions, right? Like he has to end the game with like beer sell. And so he might not have enough cash to take advantage of the beer on his next turn. Yeah, so we see a lot of counting, a lot of valuation here between the players. This is probably a pretty fun conversation. This is one of the downsides of when I don't include the player commentary. I mean, most of the time it's silent and it's hard to hear anyway. But this certainly seems like it's an interesting conversation. It wouldn't work at 200% speed anyhow. Many reasons why it doesn't work here. Oh, he's really mulling this one over. That's fair. They're probably tired. My guess is that he's running a few of the same calculations in his mind over and over and over again, and getting stuck. And now they're probably. I mean, I can see with those laughter that they're clearly at the stage of just offering crazy strategies as a solution. Man, it just seems so risky to me. If he isn't going first next turn, is that a leak? Did he flip it? What did he do? He didn't flip it. He played a card for something. Is that a scout? Maybe he took a loan. Who knows? Oh, holy cow. Okay, so he counted it out. He took a loan. Then he played out a box because he's got that 4-point box, and he plays this garbage 3-point box, taking one of Bryant's merchant boxes. So I was wrong. There was a space left. There was leak left. That play of Bryant's that I was going on and on and on about, there was a space left to block it. I just totally missed that because it wasn't connected. It was in the north. Oh no. I mean, that's the fear, right? That's the fear with dropping both of those things, spending all your money, going last on that turn. Wow, that is absolutely chilling. That's devastating. And I mean, honestly, I can't blame Jajin. Like, what are his other plays here? Like 3-point links here and there. Like, there's not much for him to do. That is pretty nasty, but it increases his points as much as possible. And I don't actually know what the state of the game is right now. I think he's in trouble without having played any of his beer into play and like having some pretty weak plays throughout the game. But he was leading at the end of Canal. You know, there's always a chance that you just like stumble across the finish line into victory here. Were those the last 2 plays? I thought I said that there were 2 rounds left, but I might have missed something there. And Cliff manages to get down his iron here, which is a very big deal. Thanks to all that pressure on the iron that sort of came out of nowhere. This really worked out super well for Cliff. I mean, Brian's play here of the double boxes is like a nice toss Hail Mary play, but also I guess his other option could have been like yeah, maybe this is just the last round, and maybe I miscounted the number of cards since people are just leaving their cards in play. That's got to be it. So Bryant flips one of the crates, and he looks positively defeated over there, which, hey, I don't blame him. That's devastating. Woof. Also hurts Isaac and Bryant for another 2 points for the links, right? Because it's the level 5s are double links there. So now we're going to do scores of the players. It looks like it takes a moment or so to figure it out. Let me pause and go do some score hunting. Okay, I'm back with a summary of the endgame points. They're counting out in play right now, but I'm going to tell you what it is. So our before end of round scores going from Zhaojin around the table because he was first player, 44, 31 Isaac, 29 Cliff, and 35 Bryant. However, rail scores are very dramatic with 38 for Zhaojin, 48 for Isaac, 68 for Cliff, and 28 for Bryant. So a really huge difference, 28, 38, 48, and 68, 20 extra points for Cliff there. And then the industries are 52 for Zhaojin, 59 for Isaac, 46 for Cliff, and 71 for Bryant. The end scores there go Cliff in first place at 143, Isaac at 138, and then 134 for Zhaojin and Bryant in the other seats there. It's worth noting that Bryant would have had plus 10 points if he was able to flip that last thing, putting him at 144, would put Isaac at 140. So I think barring nothing else changed, it may have been the case that Zhaojin actually enabled Cliff to win this game. And it was the most points that he could score. I mean, it really was the best line for him at the time. So I don't think that that's anything, weird about that play. But, like, that's an interesting dynamic about Brass that always exists. Like, there's, like, pulling points from someone, these, like, competitive markets where these spaces are, makes that you're just fighting over these particular positions. And then, yeah, I mean, honestly, hats off to Bryant for finding a line that could possibly win the game. Given that he only scored 28 points in rails, which in a game where everybody is playing Blick seems like an absolute nightmare. Cliff did it a little bit more traditionally. He was behind in terms of that infrastructure in Canal, but he had set up to have just a huge amount of rail points and managed to eke out enough before the end of the game. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Throw a like and subscribe if you watched all the way through here. I mean, come on. You must at least at this. Actually, if you're watching at this stage, you already like and subscribe. Who am I kidding? Have a great day. Bye.